Hello and welcome back or welcome to my channel. My name is Anna of Anna's Yarn Box Fiber Arts and I am so excited to have you here. Welcome to my second ever knitting podcast episode, which is going to be uploaded every week on Friday, hopefully in the evening. I'm going to shoot for around 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is my time zone, or 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but look for new videos from me every Friday evening. And if you are new here, like I said in the beginning, my name is Anna, and every week I host a knitting podcast where I talk about my works in progress, yarn, patterns, anything crafty and creative that's going on in my life recently. And in today's episode, we have some very exciting things. I have my first ever finished knit sweater, which I talked a little bit about last episode, and I'm going to be sharing in more detail today. We also have my current works in progress, because I have quite a few going on right now, and also some yarn I've acquired recently. So if that sounds interesting to you, stick around, grab a snack, and get comfy. Alrighty, my friends, let's get into it. So, like I mentioned, I have my first ever fully finished knit sweater. So a little bit of background. I mentioned this before, but I am previously a crocheter, or still currently a crocheter, kind of a crocheter turned knitter, if you will. I've been crocheting since I was 11 years old, so about 12 years now, and that was kind of my first fiber art love. And then I decided to teach myself how to knit. I'm completely self-taught in all areas, and I just really got into knitting. And so I shared in my last episode my first ever pair of knit socks, and now I'm going to share with you my fully finished first ever knit sweater. So I didn't mention this in my last video, but a little bit of background. I have actually knit like 2.5 sweaters, well, 2 halves of a sweater, but not like 2 different halves, like not like the top half of one sweater and the bottom half of another sweater. No, I've knit 2 top halves of a sweater. So basically I got to like the yoke, which is like, the yoke in a sweater is you have the collar here and then you're increasing. So the yoke is this top part that forms like the chest area and the sleeves, and then you split for the sleeves and knit the body usually. And so I've knit 2 top halves of the sweater. I don't know if that's making sense, but I'll see if I can insert photos here. But I basically started knitting a sweater in like weight 4 yarn that was like a blend of wool and alpaca. It was Drops Nepal, I believe. And I just decided that the neckline was too high for me. It was going to be way too hot. It was just not going to be ideal. And I was spending hours and hours knitting something that I wasn't going to love at the end of the day. So I decided to frog it, and I ended up selling the yarn because I was like, I don't really feel like I'm ever going to use this. And then I went to my local yarn store, and I shared this story last week, how I met the designer of the sweater that I just finished. It is called the Helix Raglan, and I will get into that in more detail in a second. But I met the designer of the pattern at my local yarn store, like I said, and we hit it off, and she said I could test her sweater pattern, and I was so honored. And I was really excited because I was really excited to make something that I was actually going to wear and actually going to love, versus spending hours and hours knitting something that I just really didn't want to wear, because that kind of has no purpose to me. Like, I want to knit things I'm actually going to wear and love and enjoy, and I don't want to waste my time on things I'm not. So as scary as it was, because there's like a lot of maybe a little more advanced techniques in this sweater. There are short rows, there is cabling, there is twisted rib, there is all kinds of things I hadn't done before. But because I had knit 2 halves of a sweater, I was able to have that kind of basis. So I was able to know how to do the increases, which is like make one left, make one right, which is where you pick up a bar in between your stitches and create another stitch. And so I had some basis of Raglan sweater making to be able to help inform me on my sweater making journey here. It was also great because this is a test knit. I was able to have direct connection with the designer and able to kind of bother Kim all day with my questions, being like, what does this mean? I did kind of heavily rely on YouTube tutorials to help me with things like German short rows and stuff. But once I got past that, and once I kind of started to memorize the cable pattern, I was able to just like fly this right off my needles. And I'm happy to say that it has only taken me 7 weeks to complete an entire sweater, which I think is a little bit insane. Like, to have never knit an entire sweater before, and especially to knit one with cables and short rows, and then to have it done in a little less than 2 months, I think that's crazy. But now for the long-awaited finished sweater reveal. I'm sorry for rambling on. I'm just so excited about this. But are you ready for it? Are you ready? I think I've paused long enough. But here she is. This is the Helix Raglan by Indigo Knits. I hope I'm doing it justice. But it's called the Helix Raglan because it has this beautiful helix pattern along the raglan seams. And I will try this on so you can see what it looks like on bod. And I'm also gonna insert a clip of before and after blocking it, but I'll get to that in a second. So a little bit about this sweater. As I mentioned, it is a top-down seamless raglan, meant it is knit from the collar downwards, and this was knit on 4mm knitting needles and 3.5 knitting needles for the ribbing. It was knit in Rauma fennel garn in the color Wheat Heather, which I absolutely love this color. As I mentioned last episode, my boyfriend picked this out and I love it. It's this like gorgeous wheat brown, but I love how it has this like variation. There's like some dark spots and some lighter spots, and I absolutely love it. Yeah, what else can I say about this sweater besides I'm just so excited? It has short row shaping, meaning the back collar is higher than the front neckline. And then also there are short rows at the bottom. I don't know how well I'll be able to show this off, but yeah, I don't know if you can see that the back hem is a little longer. So it sits a little longer in the back, which I really like. As for measurements and things, I have a 40-inch bust. The recommended ease for this pattern is 8 inches. So my finished garment, I believe, has a bust circumference of 49 inches, meaning basically I have 8 inches of wiggle room, or the garment is 8 inches bigger than my own measurements. Yeah, and I'll A, put it on so you can see what it looks like on bod, and B, I'll put photos of myself wearing it because I did do a whole little photo shoot to show it off. Also, again, shout out to my boyfriend for taking those photos. I will insert a little bit of them here, and you can also, if you would like to see more, check out my Instagram, which is at Anna's Yarn Box. But yeah, let me try this on. So here is the finished sweater on. I am so incredibly proud of it. I will kind of stand up so maybe you could see it a little bit more. Here she is in all of her glory. She's very comfy, kind of has like almost like a sweatshirt vibe mixed with like a formal sweater, which I really like. And I would leave this on for the rest of the video, but it is at the end of the day a wool sweater. And unfortunately here in California, we are getting into official summer weather. It is actually a beautiful sunny day today, which it's been cloudy like all of the month of May, and we're into June now, and it's finally warming up and getting sunny, and I can finally wear shorts and tank tops and exciting stuff. But I was actually, if you're wondering, able to wear this sweater. I did wear it the other day. I think I wore it last week, and it was really fun. And I mentioned in my last podcast episode that I really wanted to finish this sweater in time to wear it to my local yarn store social stitch, and I am proud to announce that I was able to complete that. I finished this sweater on social stitches on Wednesday every week, and I finished it on Tuesday, but I also needed to make sure my sweater had enough time to block, which the blocking process is basically where you wash your garment and then you pin it to the dimensions that you want so you get a nice fit, so your stitches even out. It's a really important process, but getting your sweater wet means it has to dry. And so I basically woke up Tuesday morning at like 8 in the morning and just started knitting because I had the last arm cuff to do, and this is twisted rib, so it takes me longer than plain stockinette because you have to purl and knit, so I have to move back and forth between the two stitches. And so I had to do this entire cuff. That's all I had left of the sweater. So like I said, woke up at 8 in the morning, just started knitting right away. Don't worry, I made sure I ate breakfast and stuff, but I just went on a knit marathon. And so I knit from 8 to noon, I think, and then I washed it and blocked it. It was on the blocking boards at 1 p.m. and I was like, okay, this has like 24 hours to dry. Luckily the sun had come out a little bit, so I was able to put it outside. But then Kim was like, make sure you don't leave it out there too long because it might get sun bleached. And I was like, oh no. So I was kind of very hesitant, and I was just kind of like looking at it, watching it, making sure it was okay. And so it did end up being dry in time, so I was able to wear it to my local yarn store social stitch, which was so exciting. It was really fun because when I walked in, one of the ladies who works there, Sherry, was like, oh, you're wearing your Helix. And I was like, yeah, I am. I just finished it. It's my first ever sweater. And then everyone who was sitting there around the table for the social stitch were so sweet. They go, oh my gosh, that's your first sweater. And they all started clapping for me. And it was just so like heartwarming, and it was so nice to have like my work be acknowledged. And one lady there was like, I love that. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to make one for myself. So that was really cool and really kind of validating for me in my knitting journey. But yeah, so that's my Helix Raglan, and I am so excited to share it with you. And I'm now going to change out of this because, like I said, it is quite a warm day, and we'll get into the rest of the podcast episode. Okay, we are back in our comfy t-shirt, and my last little notes about that sweater is that the pattern will be released on July 1st, I believe. So if this is something that interests you, please keep your eyes out and please support my amazing friend Kim. I would also like to note that like I said before, I understand like knitting a sweater in June is not really ideal, but also like I get the experience, and I feel like this truly has like launched my knitting journey, and that now I feel like I can knit anything, honestly, which is a really cool feeling because now I don't feel limited by patterns. I don't feel like I have to just make beginner things. I feel like I can really branch out and challenge myself to make things I really love and enjoy. I also want to talk a little bit about the yarn. I talked about this before, but it is a rustic wool. It is minimally processed, meaning it is a little bit rougher, a little bit more rustic, a little bit more, I don't want to say scratchy, but definitely not like superwash, which is super like soft and silky. So that does kind of change the wearing experience. I will note that I do prefer to wear this with like a t-shirt or a tank top underneath, just so it's not touching my skin all over and it's just touching the skin on my arms primarily. I do like the wool, and I do know that this kind of wool holds up really well. I absolutely love the color. The wool was really nice to work with. If you're wondering, it didn't hurt my hands at all. Like it didn't scratch my hands up, or it didn't hurt my hands to work with. It actually glided quite smoothly. I knit on wooden knitting needles, a laminated wood, I believe, and I had a pleasant experience knitting this up, and I think it knit up quite quick. Like I said, I knit the whole sweater in 7 weeks. But that is just my little note about yarn. I will say that if I'm going to knit, if I were to knit this sweater again, which I definitely think I will, because this pattern is so well written and so helpful, I do think that I would knit it in a softer yarn, just out of personal preference. Not that there's anything wrong with the yarn I used, just to have like a different version of it, so that way it's like I'm knitting the same pattern but it feels like a different garment, if that makes sense. But I would knit it, I think, in maybe like a softer yarn, like maybe a superwash wool instead. The pattern does call for a sport weight yarn, which is the weight I used, or a DK weight yarn, and it has quite a loose gauge, so you're able to kind of play around with yarn weights. Like I said, I do think I would do a superwash wool, and I think I would make a size smaller than the size I made. I did make a size 4, but I think I would size down to a size 3 just so I could have less positive ease and have a tighter fitting garment. So maybe I will make another Helix in the future, and I will share that here maybe later in the year, maybe one for fall. I'm thinking of making it in like a really pretty sage green. I saw some yarn at my local yarn store the other day that I think might be perfect. It was this like gorgeous sage green. I don't remember the brand, but I do think it was American Wool. I'm not sure, but maybe that is in the future. I also did see a really pretty shade of Double Sunday by Sandus Garn that I think would work. That was also like a lighter shade of green. If you can't tell, green is my favorite color. But yeah, so those are kind of my last and final notes on the Helix Raglan. Now let's get into my current works in progress. So Well, actually, I have another finished thing for you, but it's just a little teeny tiny thing, like quite literally teeny tiny. And I made this yesterday while I was waiting for the gardeners, and I made this cute little itty bitty bag charm that is a strawberry that matches my purse perfectly. Basically, I stumbled upon a YouTube tutorial by Maham Crochets. I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but it was just a little tutorial on how to make a strawberry keychain, and I thought this was so perfect because I have a strawberry purse. I absolutely love this purse. I also just want to make a side note that it is a Coach purse, but I don't want to sit here and being like flaunting my Coach bag. I did get this at the outlet store, and I am well aware of the privilege of owning a Coach bag. Like, that is so exciting to me. Never in my life did I think I would ever own one of these. That is not the point of this. The point is that I made a very cute strawberry charm to go on this bag, and now, like, they're matching. How adorable is that? And this took me like 30 minutes, and I just used yarn I had in my stash, and this tutorial was super great, so I'll be sure to link it below. And now let's get into my actual works in progress, which I have quite a few. So I'm gonna start with, I guess, the smallest, which is, I started a cardigan because I got this dress recently that I love, but the like top's a little revealing. So my grandma suggested that I crochet a little like cardigan to wear over it. So I am making the Adena cardigan by Mrs. Moon in Heaven. I'll put a picture of it here. I think I'm gonna do the short sleeve version. So this is all I have right now. It's just the start of the back panel. It's kind of just like a crochet mesh stitch. So there is kind of this mesh pattern, so it's kind of airy, and I'm just making this out of Caron 1 pound, so it's a worsted weight acrylic yarn. So that's kind of all I have for that. Then let's see, sorry, I have all my works in progress over here on this desk just for ease of access. For me personally, I like to film these podcast episodes kind of in one or few takes, so that way they're kind of all one train of thought instead of being all over the place. But yeah, so as I mentioned in my last episode, I'm also just untangling yarn because these decided to kind of become friends and tangle together. But as I do that, I will talk about the work in progress I'm going to show next, which is the Flaneur top by Sewrella Yarn that I mentioned I'm going to be making in a one of a kind yarn. So I don't have much to show you, and it's going to be kind of hard to show you because this is stockinette, and stockinette has a tendency to curl, but I did start it the other day. So I don't know if you can see, like, this is like the top shoulder part, and then this curve here is like the neckline. And so it's going to be like, let's see if I can demonstrate. Kind of like that. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm excited to work on this. This is in Tidal and Current Fibers, a one of a kind, this beautiful like peach and green and teal situation that I love and just reminds me of summer. Next work in progress, which I think is one that's very exciting, it is a sample knit. So compared to a test knit is where you are testing out a pattern for someone, such as, you know, as a designer, you're testing their pattern to see if it, you know, is viable. Whereas a sample knitter is where you are knitting a pattern to be a sample. So you're knitting a full piece to be a sample for usually a yarn store. So basically there's a yarn store in Brooklyn, New York called Argyle Yarn Store, and they put a call on their Instagram for sample makers, and basically they have their own in-house hand-dyed yarn brand, and they send you the yarn, and then you make a sample out of the yarn for them, and then in return I will get some of their yarn. I will get to pick out some of their yarn, if that makes sense. So I am making the Ripple Halter by Jessie May, and this is the yarn. It is called Mesmerize and is by their, like I said, in-house yarn brand called Luminous Brooklyn, hand dyed in New York City. This color, like I said, is called Mesmerize, and I am not typically a purple girly. I'm more of a green blue girly, but this color is mesmerizing. I don't know how it's picking up on camera. I feel like it's picking up more blue, but it definitely shifts from blue to purple. And here's the start of my Ripple Halter. I'll put a picture of what it's going to look like here, but I just have the collar going on, but this yarn knits up so beautifully, and I don't know if you can see, but there's some like subtle striping, which I really love. So yeah, so that's really exciting. I have to finish this sample by July 15th, and then I mail it off to them, and then I get some beautiful yarn in return. So that is really, really exciting. And the last work in progress I have to show you, which is almost complete, which is my Tobago Bag by TL Yarn Crafts. I keep wanting to call it the Tobago Bag, but I realize now that this might be named after the country Trinidad and Tobago, so it's Tobago. But anyway, this is a free pattern. She has a YouTube video on it, and there's also a written pattern, but it is this bag that's made up out of 2 hexagons and a square. So I just sewed it together, and now I am doing the border, and there's going to be like a tie that goes through these gaps here. This is made with Lion Brand 24/7 cotton and then some random cotton I had in my stash. But it was kind of magical how this worked out, because I had picked these colors for 24/7 cotton. I got this as a kit off Lion Brand. But then I had gotten a 4th color that I didn't really like how it went with these ones. It was like an amber color, and it was kind of like a browny gold, and it just really didn't mesh with these. So I looked through my stash, and I happened to have this white speckle that has pink, green, and blue speckles, which are the colors I chose here. So I was like, how perfect does that work? And this is also cotton, but there's a bit of a difference between these two, because this is 100% not mercerized cotton, and this is 100% mercerized cotton, which is basically just a process they use to make the cotton shiny and stronger. I do like working, this is my first time working with Lion Brand 24/7 cotton. I will say it's nice. It kind of reminds me of, like, in a good way, like a shoelace almost. So I would not ever, I don't think, make a garment out of it, but I do think it's really great for accessories like bags. But this was just like a little opportunity for me to play with color, because I just think it's so fun. And so, like, it reminds me of like Barbie, reminds me of like the 90s, reminds me of like Nickelodeon slime. I don't know, I just think it's fun. But hopefully I will finish this soon. I also want to line it with fabric, so I think that will be also cool. And yeah, now lastly I have some yarn to show you. I did shop the Sewrella Yarn Oopsie sale. So if you don't know what that is, it's basically where Sewrella has extra yarn that they have dyed that maybe don't meet their very high dyeing standards, or they just have like leftovers from collections and they've kind of been stockpiling those up, and then they get sold for a discounted price. So you get a bundle of 4 skeins of yarn in whatever weight you choose, and they are mystery skeins, so you don't know, like, they're prepackaged sets of 4, so you don't know what colors you're getting, but you can put a note saying what colors you would like or what colors you would not like. And for me, I shopped that collection so quick. The collection dropped at 5 p.m. my time, and I had already finished my order at 5:01, which was crazy. I didn't need to go that fast. I could have chilled a little bit. But anyway, and then it took about 2 weeks for the yarn to get to me, and I don't know, I feel interesting about it because I do like the colors. I ended up going with their Silk DK base, which DK weight is like weight 3. It's like in between fingering and worsted. And it's their silk blend, so it's 50% silk, 50% superwash wool, and it is very nice. I just don't know what I'm going to make with it, so I'm going to show you the yarn now. So like I said, it's 4 skeins, and they are beautiful, and they do all go together. So we have this like light peachy pink. We have this kind of more blush terracotta pink. We have this purpley pink variegated, and then we have this teal peach variegated, which I believe this is the Pirates of the Caribbean one, which is the color I really, really wanted, and it is gorgeous. The problem is I only have 1 skein of them each, and they're like basically one of a kind. So I either have to do something that involves all 4 skeins, or I have to find 4 1 skein projects. So, and it is DK weight yarn. So I don't know, especially because it's silk and wool. The reason I got the silk blend is because they have like silk blends, they have cashmere blends, and I wanted to try a more like luxurious fiber, and because it was such a discounted price, these skeins were $21 each instead of being like $34. So it's quite a discount, and I wanted to try one of their more luxurious bases since I was able to shop it more affordably, but I just don't know what I'm going to make with silk yarn. You know what I mean? Like, I had the idea I could make like a granny square bag with these, but I don't really know if I want to use silk for a bag. You know what I mean? So I don't know. And I put into one of my Facebook groups I'm in, like, help, like, what should I make with these 4 skeins of yarn? And like 90% of the recommendations I got were for shawls or for wraps, and I am not a shawl or wrap girly, unfortunately. I'm more of a cardigan, sweater, bag, that kind of girly. And so if you have any suggestions of what I should make with this beautiful yarn, or alternatively, Sewrella is releasing a Taylor Swift themed collection, which I talked about. I hand dyed some yarn inspired by each of the Taylor Swift albums. You can check that out in my very first video or my second video on this channel. And I love Taylor Swift so much, and Sewrella yarn really does great and beautiful colorways. So I'm debating that if I were to sell this yarn in a D-stash group, then I could get like 4 skeins of the same and make one cohesive project. I don't know, because these skeins do coordinate. Like, I could do a color fade. I think I would do something like that. I would do this like, or I don't know, but anyway, I could fade them together. I just don't know if that's what I want to do. So if you have any ideas, please let me know in the comments below, because I'm just unsure of what to do with this yarn. So I did take this discounted time as an opportunity to try out their wool wash and their hand cream, because these are highly talked about. The wool wash, these were also mystery scents. You can put a note for these. I did put a note saying no eucalyptus scents, because I don't like the smell of eucalyptus and it kind of makes me choke up. But the scent I got for the wool wash was sweater weather, which is so hard to say for me. And I know you can't smell this, but I will describe it to you now. It smells like apple cider and like pumpkins and like fall, and it's quite good. I do enjoy it, so that will be nice for fall time. And I also got their hand cream, which these tubs are massive. Like, I don't know if you can see that, but this is in the scent Brooklyn, and these are both ironically from their Autumn in New York collection, which is cool. And this smells quite like musky. I don't know if that's a good smell, but it smells really good. It's like mysterious and like kind of dark. It kind of smells like men's cologne. It smells like a fancy hotel, honestly. I really like it though. And their hand cream formula is really good, and you get a ton, so I would recommend that. But yeah, so that is everything I got from the Sewrella Oopsie sale. Like I said before, if you have any ideas what I should make with that yarn, or if you think I should sell it, please comment down below. All right, my friends, that concludes today's episode of the podcast. I do want to apologize earlier for the tangled yarn situation. I had everything so nicely laid out, and then they decided to mingle and become friends. But nonetheless, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and be sure to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I would really appreciate it. It would mean the world to me. And be sure to do something kind for yourself today. Bye!